Hi, this is D13, and welcome to Thundertown. So it's moving day. That's right. We're going to start moving the little town that I had built on the inside here to the outside. So you saw some of this town in some of the shots before. Here you can actually see I don't have the pedestrian bridge in yet. But I'm putting in these power poles and these electric lines. They'll actually transmit, power along the line. But sometimes the ends of the power lines, they aren't close enough to the other power lines. Something's wrong and they don't quite get it. So underneath there, underneath the rock edges, the PO'd rocks, you saw me drop in some power cubes. So that all of this has power reaching it, and then the power from these lines will then transmit to the buildings that are underneath these. So some of these are PO'd buildings. Like I PO'd a lot of them because I needed to make them slightly bigger, so that I could fit the cubes underneath them, make them a little taller or something. But some of them are functional. They're functional buildings from the workshop. You see me trying to figure out, I wanted a couple of little roads over here to move around on. And I'm just taking that other town that I had already constructed, and I grabbed everything wholesale and moved it over here and just started rearranging everything. You can look at all those asset cubes. Those are all where people live, and so the green ones are homes and for civilians, and then the blue ones are commercial. So I really have a large smattering of everything under here, except industry. And there's a lot of entertainment cubes and things like that to try to have places where people would want to go. So that way I get a lot of motion and movement throughout the town. You can see those trucks coming through here, which are trains on a railroad that's invisible. And I put those decals down so I know where the trains, where the rails are. So I think I'm finally done organizing my roads here. There was a little bit of a time lapse there just showing the trains running through there. The trucks, I should say, running through there. Road trains? Yeah, that sounds about right. So again, bringing in tons of these buildings, some of these old gas stations or service stations for cars and things like that, and some factory buildings that just look, I wanted them all to be low too, because you want to be able to see anything coming from the distance. So nothing here is more than, say, 2 stories high, I believe. There's a functioning water tower there, another small one. And it's not that I really need too much in terms of the functioning water, because the town is not... there's not a billion people in it at this point. Right now we're at about 1,400, which is enough to cause some traffic jams occasionally. The main road that goes through the town does connect to the map on both edges and goes through this entire valley. Actually, it connects on all 4 edges of the map so that we get traffic from all 4. And then the only way across the map is through this town. So you will see cars just traveling straight through. And then the buses you're seeing there's some old 1950s buses. Those are servicing the town here. There are a couple of bus stops here, and then I extended the bus line out here. And then there's also an inner city bus. It's larger. It's like an old Greyhound bus that sometimes runs down the road. And there's a out-of-town bus stop, whatever it's called, somewhere in the town at the other end. And they can transfer from that to a bus line very quickly and then continue to move around the town. So here I was looking at moving more power lines, and I was trying to just sort of wholesale grab a bunch of these and move them over. Makes it easier this way rather than trying to run each individual power line. There, I'm getting my light poles back in there. You can see those staggered cars that are parked. There's 3 parking lots on the workshop that are invisible parking lots, and they cause these cars to park staggered like that, oddly staggered. And I thought, wow, for a sort of post-apocalyptic looking city, I kind of think people would just park wherever they wanted. And this kind of gives you that feel that they are just parking willy-nilly everywhere, So I came in here and put in this prop fence. believe I come back later and remove it and put in a network fence that's much easier to work with. But I needed to create sort of the train corridor here to make sure that when I was placing these buildings, that I didn't put them too close to the rail. There you saw that there's actually some buildings in there that I think there's at least one police station, and there are fire stations. I put fire stations in, but I have the mod that makes sure that there's no fires. It's not that there'd be much to burn when it comes to this map. There's not a lot of trees. The buildings themselves, like I said, most of them are procedural objects, so not much here to actually catch fire. And I'm going around using the same decal, the dirt decal that I really like, to grunge this up a little bit. Technical term. I think if it were Biffa City, he would have said Grungeify, and then had a wonderful little graphic on the screen that said that. I love his series, and I just can't get enough of watching his stuff, especially when he fixes traffic. So this is where I was coming in and putting in the walking path before I put in the bridge that goes across. Underneath there, so you can see I'm adding the road that goes underneath the wall now. And this way I can put some cubes far out on these little buildings so that they actually have some functioning stuff going on out here. I even put a couple of cubes underneath those buildings, so it's possible to sort of stare at those buildings and actually see someone walk into one of them. Those little buildings that help raise the bridges here. Sorry for the jerkiness of the video. Sometimes I really forget to just leave the camera in one location while I work. So now I thought I'm going to have a little checkpoint all the way on the outer edge of the town. This isn't really a very secure gate at this far end. But it's somewhat secure. There you saw a truck running backwards just because I have these ports that are off to the edge of the map, and places where the trains are sort of a contained loop, and I had some of them backwards with one-way tracks going the wrong way, so the trains would spawn backwards, or spawn and they'd get stuck going backwards through the town. The trains the trucks that have got multiple colors on them are the cargo trains. The trucks that are all green are the passenger trains, the intercity and trains that travel from. So I've got a couple of small cities that are nothing but the cubes along some roads at certain places on the other sides of the valley, so that it can generate traffic coming over here. And anything that comes from off the map goes into these little cities, and it's disconnected generally. The trains that come in from off the map are disconnected from the trains that service the town. And I'm not sure that it was necessary to do that, but it sort of makes these little towns that where you transfer all of the stuff. You transfer your materials to the trucks that come to the town that way. I was trying to simulate there being several towns outside of this town, around the wastelands out here. Here I'm trying to get the power to look like it's running towards the power plant. So I ran these power lines into the side of this just to sort of terminate them there. And just continued working on these power poles with my little power pole assets that I showed off in a bonus feature. So as the power goes farther away from the main power poles, I have less lines running there. So it starts with these 4x lines, and then it goes down to 2s and even 1s that go across some of them. So here I want to have like a tire center, like a place where you would buy and have your car serviced, you'd buy your tires. And since Maximus Tire and Rubber is the main supplier of that sort of thing in the town, I thought I got to bring in the Maximus Tire. And I was unsure as to how to do this, and so I did each piece separately. I think Procedural Objects now lets you group things together, and I haven't tried it yet, but I'll bet that would let me shrink the entire thing all at once. So I got the sign to cover this ready to roll sign. And I gotta say, this is a really, really pretty asset. Just amazing. I mean, it has a couple of parking spots in it, and I dropped a car in there to sort of just grunge this up a little bit, but it didn't take much because most of this is already built into this. I believe even the vent on the top is functioning. So this is a functioning building. I didn't PO this building. And here you can see me painstakingly moving my letters around again. But I really, really wanted to have this, and I felt like I probably will put another one of these or two of these throughout the town. I can just sort of wholesale copy and paste it. Now I'm going to go through here and do my normal, let's grunge it up. Let's get more buildings in here. So I started getting a lot of the shanty buildings and sheds and things like that I really love to put down for this town. And just dropped as many of them as I could for this area, thinking I'm going to put a whole bunch of these in here. So dropped them all down first, and then now I can start moving them around. And a lot of these I just left as the buildings they are. I didn't PO them. So they actually function as housing in the town. I love that there's a little pawn shop asset there that I just love. And drop that in there. I think I've got that somewhere else in the town as well. So now it was just a matter of thinking, how would people build here? Like, what would be built along here? Like, these would not be great houses to live in with the trucks coming through here constantly. So they probably would be some commercial in here, and the people would live a little farther closer to the cliff edges. So I do a lot of where I combine two buildings together to make a new building, basically. It's a lot of like this little area back here. There'd be a little, like right behind those buildings on the front. There'd be other buildings right along the cliffs behind it. So I actually had some invisible paths going back there, and possibly even a couple of invisible roads, like the pedestrian roads. You can see this road going up here and disappearing back into the rocks. That's where I eventually am going to build a sort of night market or black market area back in those in that little area to the right. Some of the detailing here is just putting, water tanks up on the buildings. Eventually I'm going to have to trash this up real good. So here I put in some entertainment blocks and some more blocks where people can live all along these buildings in the back. Even though some of these buildings are functional, I just felt like there'd be quadruple or triple the amount of people, and I didn't have the mod that lets me modify the numbers for the amounts of people that can be in a building, so I just would copy paste a ton of these blocks underneath them. I mean, it is kind of bad because it goes against your limit of how buildings that you can have in the city. So there I found like a little trash area. I'm not even sure. It might even function as something. I'm not 100% certain. I'm using this. I was using that terraforming. Not terraforming, sorry. The network, poppable networks. That's the dirt color. I put these in and I sort of raise them up just a tiny bit to cover over things like the road and try to make everything smooth. Now I've got my my little rubble rock buildings and sticking those along the bottom edges again, and filling it all in with the bushes that I've got sort of as the theme of the town. Here I'm trying to find a better fence, something that looks really good along here. And I think this is a prop, it's not a network. Oh no, I think it is a network fence. Well, wow. So I actually replaced and put a network barbed wire fence in here along the place where the trucks go. Again, that's another one of these things where I go back in and I replaced it with this current fence that I was working on. I like the dark fence because it's a good contrast to the lighter mud color everywhere. I'm having a little trouble trying to actually figure out what I'm doing here. I was trying to get the fence and replace the one along here. There we go. So I went through and I put all these little dry brush bushes in here. There was this gas station I built as a proof of concept for this whole thing. It's been moved like 9 times, but you can see it right there on the left. So it was actually the first thing I built to sort of inspire me for the theme of the town. Now I'm putting some military guys, moving them around so they're like patrolling in this center area of the town. Continuing to work on the stuff in here. I kind of figured this little town here will serve as a template for what I want to do on the west side of town. Although on the west side of town I've already got a train stop just outside the town where a bus goes in through a tunnel into the side of the mountain and comes back into the town. I hope I can show some footage of that future episode. I really do enjoy the massive amounts of bushes and trees and things. This is an instance where a bunch of them were raising up in the air, and you've seen this before in a previous video, where I just set the Move It mod to select nothing but trees, and then I just highlight them all, and then I lower them below ground, and they all pop back to the surface. And oddly, that continues to happen throughout the series, and I end up doing that multiple times. I would say every session, practically, I end up having to do that. So here's some of those dirt decals that I turned into POs and shrunk them down a little bit. It lets me get in here and drop them in the more narrow areas. I think you saw this with the tire and rubber area. I think I've got this area pretty good. I like how this is looking here. There's a ton of trucks just rolling into town all at once. Like the mining area we've got in the town actually brings in so much ore that it isn't all usable. So I have the warehouses set to balanced. So a lot of stuff is going out, and this also generates trucks coming in. I kind of like it because we get more trucks coming in and out there. You saw a tank I put on the right there. The military is not going to have a lot of tanks or a lot of big military vehicles, but they'll have a few. And that might not even be a functional tank. That might just be there for show. So here I was putting these little power poles on every building. I think I went a little overboard here, because I put them on every building and then I ran a line down from a power poles and sometimes from building to building, and cover this with so many little wires. When you have a lot of those wires in, though, it really is something you need to do at the end of your build, because you have a network limit and they are networks, and well, it's hard to grab a hold of the ends of things overall, or grab a hold of things underneath them. You keep trying to grab, and you get the ends of the wrong things, so it just ends up being a little bit of a pain. But I just love how this looks, so I just kept going. I mean, I think the reason that Eastgate has ended up as 3 episodes is because this really took a long time for me to finish and detail this area. So now let's sit back and enjoy the cinematics. Next episode, Bartertown, Eastgate Part 3. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you'll like and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon. Alright, so we're back with the second episode of the Valley rework, bonus content. Here you can see I'm working on some of these upper edges of the cliff area, sort of where it's like a little wavy spot, because I really manipulated the tops of some of these procedural objects and they kind of got a little wonky, I guess. So I'm just trying to make it so you can see I don't know what you call it, striations, whatever you want to call it, the splits where it kind of goes back farther as it goes up. And this part of the valley I was looking at because I wanted to sort of hollow this out a little bit and run another train line around the back here. So I started working on this and thought, well, once I get these all worked out here, I'm gonna dig through there, and then I'll continue. Then I'll finish it off back there. Yeah, here we go. This is where I'm making the opening. This sort of leads back to the oil area. I was going to be building the oil area soon, and I wanted to make sure that I had a way for oil to come into the town, because the idea is that the oil would be coming from another town or from another place. It wouldn't be something that was mined here, even though it is just mined on the other side of or gathered on the other side of these cliffs. It would be coming from somewhere else, from out of town. So the tire and rubber company makes the rubber and the tires, but they don't actually drill their own oil. Then this road you see going out this way goes to a small city near the edge of the map. That is where the Zeppelin you saw there was like a blimp that's flying through the town. You've probably seen in a few videos. And I haven't really talked about it. I actually said that there probably wouldn't be any flying vehicles. But in the MadMax lore, there's the gyro captain, also known as Jeremiah. And I kind of wanted that to be in the town. So it is. You're going to see me in a future episode building a blimp stop in the upper class area of the city. Same with these exits on this end of town. They go way out to the coast, and there's actually a port with some water right at the edge of the map. So I just wanted to keep the functionality of the ports, or of the ability to have a port, and for cruise ships to be dropping people off and all of that at the other end of town, like way out of town. But you probably can't see any of that even in this view. And here we go. This is the end of this episode, and we'll have the final bit of the valley revamp or rework next episode.